Hey guys, meteorologist David Yeomans back here early this morning on North Padre Island, just off the coast of Corpus Christi on the Barrier Island. We're starting to receive really the brunt as the eye wall approaches just offshore from Hurricane Hannah. Hurricane Hannah strengthened this morning as we thought it would into the first hurricane of the 2020 season. It's the 8th tropical storm, but this is the first one to actually reach hurricane strength. We're out here at Bob Hall Pier where we've measured a 5+ foot rise in the tide, a 5+ foot rise in the level of the ocean, and that's why we're starting to see some minor damage here on some of the beach property. As another one of the rain bands moves in, we're seeing wind gusts measured on this pier at up to 45 miles per hour and sustained winds at about 30 to 35 miles per hour. So that's almost getting toward tropical storm force, of course a long ways from hurricane force, as the storm is still about 60, 70 miles offshore. Let me see if I can take you down here in between waves. Come on down here with me and you'll see what the problem is that we're seeing here lately. This last night, if you were watching our 9 or 10 o'clock news on KXAN, this was a parking lot. These pylons, which are now littered everywhere, they demarcated the concrete parking lot from the ocean over that way. Since that time, we've seen the ocean really come in and overtake the parking lot. It's overtaken all these picnic tables. Last night, for some reference, the tide was on the other side of those picnic tables. That's where high tide typically comes to, and now it is overwashing those and kind of picking off the picnic tables one by one. Here comes another wave here. The debris from these lifeguard stands is also getting a little bit more widespread, and the wave action here has been pretty incredible. And the storm, guys, remember, is still pretty far offshore. All we've seen are the outer rain bands with just kind of a taste of what's to come. What's really to come are 90 potential mile-per-hour wind gusts in just hours from right now. And we're on the north side of the eye wall as this thing is going to make landfall, which puts us on the onshore wind. That's the other thing about this storm. Locals here have been kind of thinking, oh, it's going to be a tropical storm, probably not a hurricane. Oh, we've been through many of those before. Or, oh, now it's going to hit south of us, it won't be too bad. But the problem with that is every hurricane is different. Every single hurricane is different. This is not Harvey, this is not Ike, this is not other hurricanes that have hit. Not just comparing intensities, but comparing structures and sizes. The thing that's unique about Hannah that's emerging this morning is the size of the eye. The eye is, of course, that clear hole in the center of the storm. And typically it might be 15 or 20 miles across in diameter. This one is 45 miles across. So even if the landfall probability of hitting south of here is correct, that's going to mean big problems here, because 45 miles away, you might still be in the eye, or you might be in the eye wall, which is the worst part of the storm, right around that clear middle of the storm. So again, straight that way, Hurricane Hannah getting its act together. We've got reason to believe this should be a Category 1, and it could actually be a Category 2 storm as it hits the middle and lower Texas coast by, as it looks now, early to mid-afternoon. I've spoken also with a county official who we met on the beach last night. He was patrolling, making sure everybody was safe and staying off the beach, of course. He said there are no evacuation orders for Nueces County, where we stand. There are no evacuation orders even south of here, north of here. One voluntary evacuation order a couple counties south of here, but there are no mandatory evacuations. So if this does end up intensifying a little more rapidly and possibly making landfall as a Category 2, and if it does hit in a rural area 40 miles south of here, which is largely unpopulated, that would still put potentially the 300,000 people who live in Nueces County in the eye wall of a hurricane. That means hurricane force winds. It means damage to roofs and shingles. It means widespread power outages, probably some cell phone service outages. And this could affect the highly populated areas here on Mustang Island, on North Padre Island, and even out toward Corpus Christi. So again, the wind and the waves are the main things that we're watching for here. Wind is actually, that's what you think of when you hear of a hurricane. But wind only is responsible for less than 10% of hurricane fatalities in the U.S. each year. Water is responsible for 8 or 9 out of 10 hurricane fatalities. And not just the rain flooding, the freshwater flooding as we call it, but mainly the saltwater flooding. The rise of the ocean, we call that the storm surge. And this is how things get in trouble. There were actually some police officers out here earlier this morning, guys, and these picnic tables were all still standing. And those police officers have worked here for a long time. And I said, hey, do you think these picnic tables are going to go? And they said, no, these things are well built. They've withstood the last couple storms. And here we are, guys. They're getting picked off, and not many of them are remaining. These were rooted pretty deeply into the sand, and these are just going to end up as rubble by the end of the day. Just being out here for the past several hours, there's been a big change in how far the sea is coming inland toward this protective sand dune, which, thank goodness, the county built here on this property. And there's been a big change in these wave heights, too. These waves are well overhead. Last night, you guys may have seen some surfers on our live broadcast. Those are not here this morning, and certainly wisely so. Right now, it looks like we're getting a little bit of a break here, not in the wave action, obviously, as the wind piles in the whole Gulf of Mexico into this Middle Texas beach. But in the wind and the rain here, between rain bands, which, you know, a hurricane is made of these kind of concentric, rotating, quickly moving rain bands, when you get between them, it can be relatively calm, like it is right now. This is like a 10, 15 mile an hour wind and just raining lightly. Can take my hood off. But when the next rain band hits, it's not just the heavy rain that makes you hunker down, it's really strong winds embedded in those rain bands. And why is that? If the hurricane is this concentric circle that's moving toward you, shouldn't it be uniform? Well, it's not. Usually the strongest winds in a hurricane are a bit above our heads, maybe 500 or 1,000 feet above our heads. And that's because of the friction with the Earth's surface. If you have this big hurricane above you, the part down near the ground kind of slows down a little bit because it's rubbing against the Earth's surface, which creates friction, especially when it hits land. The strongest winds are just above us, where the clouds are moving really, really quickly right now. When you get rain in one of these rain bands, the falling rain brings that layer of strong wind down to the surface. We call that vertical mixing. So those strongest winds, which were hanging out above us, now come down to the surface. That's why we've seen lulls in between the rain bands. And now here are some more gusts as another rain band approaches. So things to look for, guys, later today. Back in Central Texas, if you're watching from the Austin area or anywhere around Austin, you know, just a couple rain bands, some downpours, hopefully the first rain we've seen in a month. But down here we have more significant concerns. Again, county officials have not ordered any mandatory or voluntary evacuations in this beach community and in Nueces County, which includes Corpus. They're also going to get some of the worst storm surge because, yes, we have this barrier island to protect Corpus from the ocean and from the Gulf of Mexico. But they also have a big bay in Corpus Christi, which I'm sure you're familiar with if you have family or friends out there. And the wind from the whole Gulf of Mexico on the north side of this storm is blowing in all of the water from the ocean right into this beach and also right into that bay. So folks who live on the water in Corpus, they can expect the water to also get 2 to 4 feet above ground level. Here on the beach, we're expecting the water to get 3 to 5 feet above ground level. Not this high on the dune, of course, but we're already seeing some of that here down on the ground. Okay, so we're going to be with you guys not only on KXAN News later on this evening, but of course on our digital streams all day. My crew, Todd and I, who was with me down here in Harvey several years ago, we're going to go scout a different road that actually goes about 10 miles south of here. We confirmed with law enforcement that it is actually paved, it is elevated above sea level, and it is behind a protective sand dune like the one I'm standing on now. We're going to go check that out, see if we can get a little closer down south to where the eye may be making landfall. But you know, even here, we do expect it to get really bad here later today. So if that ends up a little sketchy, we might end up coming back this way later on today. So we're going to be out here with you guys the whole time. Thank you guys for tuning into this live stream on KXAN.com. Also check out our social media on KXAN News. I'm David Yeomans with Todd out here live, and check out these lifeguard stands. Todd, down and to the left. They're getting even worse now here this morning. Thank you guys again for joining us for this KXAN live stream.